Hey guys, it's Zaz, and just a quick notice about this video. As you can tell, it's really long. I mean, really long. It's the longest video I've done. I know my computer's gonna be screaming at me as it's uploading and trying to render. We do tend to ramble on about some of the picks on the tier list. Please feel free to kind of skip around if you feel that we're saying the same thing over and over again. I don't take offense to it. Um, I wanted to kind of keep all the raw thoughts in the video, so that way you can kind of see where we're coming from and how we're coming to our conclusions, that kind of stuff. Thank you so much for all your support and watching the video. Let me know if there's anything I could do to make it better. Hello everyone, and welcome to the Strides and City Gym. My name is Zez.
Oh, yo, I'm here. What's up?
Yeah, it's Tanner. So glad I asked him to be a part of this and literally no one else. And today, we're gonna have a nice spicy tier list.
All of those Arceus decks I've played, so.
That's true. You have the best input. So I guess we're just gonna start left to right. Arcdactyl Keys. I think this deck is like okay. I think as far as Arceus deck goes, in my opinion, it's one of the worst, because like I think in mirror matches it doesn't do anything. If that makes sense. Because like you're just gonna path your opponent, and then like you don't get to use your V stars, and they don't get to use their V stars. That's it.
I mean, as Lost Box still stays as one of the best decks in the format, I think Arc Keys with Aerodactyl is always going to be good, and then in the mirror match, I think it's still really good because most Arceus decks don't play Dunsparce, so they don't have ways of getting around Aerodactyl, but as Aerodactyl becomes anything more than what it is, well, that's to say, if it does become better, then decks are going to start countering it. It's a very easy counterable deck, whether just throwing an extra boss in your deck, or if they can't find the second clef key, then Escape Rope, or anything along those lines. But most decks don't rely off of abilities only on basics, versus like most Arceus decks, you want a Starburst, so that's an evolution, so you're not too worried about that. So I wouldn't put it too high. Personally, I think it's maybe A tier, maybe B tier.
I want to put it in A tier for right now, and then as we kind of start putting up things, if I feel like it's not as good as those other decks, I'm gonna move it down.
Yeah, I think if there was a spot in between A and B tier, I put it at that, because like it works, it can be super good, yet at the same time it's just like I don't know, it can be very interesting,
right,
to say the least.
Okay, I feel you. Alright, next, Argudra, D tier. It loses the
D tier.
Absolutely
Absolutely D tier.
You can't do it. How many games did you play yesterday or a couple days ago? Like
we played
four?
three games, and I got absolutely dumpster because I never hit turn 1 Path to the Peak, which is like, the whole point of the deck.
Right.
And there's like, you bring out Dunsparce and he goes, okay, I'm gonna put damage counters on it, and that card is absolutely useless. Like, you just fold so hard to Tinglu. But realistically, in any tournament sense where you're not gonna sit against Tinglu, I think the deck is fantastic.
So yeah, in all seriousness, I think it's either a high A tier or an S tier deck, because especially like with the way that you've played it, it is able to play a lot of techs, a lot of one-ofs that a lot of other decks just can't fit in, and it's very, what's the word I'm thinking? It's like you can
very
like
situational.
Adapt. Yeah, and you can adapt to a lot of different situations very easily, I think, and to your benefit. So I think it's an S tier deck.
So personally, I think just the one issue that would put it, I think I could see it in A tier, personally, just because I played it. But I think that maybe it sits there just due to the fact of you have to make the hard decision between Starbirth and
Moisture Star.
Moisture Star, whatever the heck it's called. And it just puts you in such a tough spot that if you make the wrong move, it's going to cost you the game.
Okay.
But still having access to two of those makes it good. And it's just, it can put your opponent in a really tough spot where if you make the wrong move, it's game over. Like, you have no backup plan, you have no nothing.
Right, and I think it's really strong because damage reduction is always really good. I mean, 80 damage is huge in this format right now. It's taking 1 shots to 2 shots and 2 shots into 3 shots, and that's important. I mean, yeah, you can always rope boss, but that's a very specific set of cards. In typical RCS fashion, you're gonna play a lot of judges, a lot of Ionos, a lot of hand disruption.
Right.
So you're banking on them not drawing that. So I think it's a low S tier to high A tier. Like, I think it's in that realm.
I agree.
And I want to put it in S tier for now.
Yeah, I think that's a valid spot.
Alright. RCS Reggie Drago. I think that
F.
No.
F tier. Bring it.
No.
Shoot that crap down.
Well, hold on. I think it's good. I think it has the benefit that Gudra does of having a lot of like one-ups and a lot of text and a lot of optional attacks that it can use. But in the sense of Drago, that can be a detriment because if you need something very specific, sometimes you don't have access to it. Like, you only play one of each dragon attacker. So, like, let's say you're looking for the Gudra, right, to help you not get one shot by someone. And its prize, you have no way to do it.
Right.
And that's a huge problem with the deck in my opinion.
So, the deck on paper seems terrible. Like, you sit with this thing and you're like, wow, I'm going to play 24 Pokemon and I'm going to hit everything I ever want. Which, for, like, I've played that deck and it seems pretty decent. I like it. I think that with the complete correct build, that the deck can do absolutely phenomenal. I mean, it won NAIC, so that says something.
For juniors. Now, that doesn't
Right.
mean anything. Like, they're so good at that level. I'm just saying that that's the kind of environment that they're in.
Right.
And I think that does matter.
But with the new tech of Noivern, I think that can bring it from B tier to A tier. I love that card since it came out, just for the fact of path stall is so unbelievably good right now, just because like Lugia is still fantastic, Qian Pao, Guardy, like these kind of decks that like strive off of being able to have their abilities, you just shut them off and you play to your benefit, because by the time you're path locking them, you've already used what you want to use.
Right. Okay. I can see that. I think it's more of a B tier deck. I'll put it in A tier, because I see what you're saying, the ability just to Noiver and lock them. My only issue with that is, like, while you're Noiver and locking them, they do have that option to set up, because Noiver only does, like, 150, which is not... Eventually it adds up, but not as much as it needs to.
And not to mention, if you sit against Lost Box, like most Lost Box decks, they can't do anything for the fact of you can also stop them from their basics attacking you too.
Right.
But even if it's like, okay, you're gonna let your opponent not set up for a turn or two with path stall, whatever, whenever it comes down to they start to get more turns to set up, you're stopping them from setting up with the path most of the time. But if you do start to see that they can still set up without it, then you're like, okay, now I can start going into like start attacking with the Gudra, start attacking with the Duraludon, start attacking with the Giratina, start attacking with whatever you need to help slow them down again. And then it's like, oh, you get path for a turn, or you get one turn without path being locked. They bump it, 80% of the time you'll be able to play another one down, or if they miss it, you're like, okay, cool, you just wasted a turn of not being able to do anything.
Right. Next, we have Arc Dura. And I want to specify this deck also plays. It plays tech cards too. It plays what is it? Umbreon V Max. It can play Alolan Vulpix V Star. It has those extra options.
I think this deck is so well rounded that it's just like it's optimally after Giratina or Arctina started to win a little bit and people started finding ways to just counter the deck and how to beat it. Arc Dumbreon is so like just optimally good. Like, yes, you're sitting with a 330 Pokemon on your bench or a 320, and they take 3 prizes for it. Like, cool. That sucks, but it has so many options for so many counters in the meta. So like you can still play Path to the Peak. Duraludon gets around Lugia, and gets around Mew, and gets around so many decks that rely on special energy. And then Umbreon, it counters Mew, it counters Guardy. It's still doing 160, so it can kill. It'll kill a bunch of things on Lost Box. So
and it has Excaliburs in one shot.
And right. Okay. So I think that deck's just still very, very good. I think honestly, I'd put that S tier just for like its versatility.
I agree, 100%. I definitely used to think this deck was not that good, and then I played against it one time and it rolled me. And I just did not know what happened to me. And then I like actually learned the deck. I was like, oh my god, like this is really good somehow. I don't know how. Next we have Arc Flying Pikachu. I'm gonna be honest. I didn't know people still played this deck. I asked for deck suggestions, and Kevin was like, ooh, Arc Flying Pika's a thing. I'm like, it is? Like, people still play this? I don't see it. I don't, like... Because of EXs and big basics aren't, like, as relevant. Like, yeah, we still have, like, Chien-Pao is really good. Miraidon's really good. Dragonite's strong. Tinglu, Wo-Chien. Like, we have basic attackers that are strong. I just don't feel like Flying Pikachu does enough. It doesn't offer that same level of versatility as just Arc Dura Umbreon. Like, I know you can, like, splash it in. I think what he meant with Arc Flying Pika is, like, Arceus Flying Pikachu, like, and like, that's it. Like, maybe there's a Duraludon in there, but, like, this is the core. And I think if this is the core, it doesn't do enough that the other Arceus decks don't already provide. And I want to put it into, like, C tier.
I agree. I think the biggest weakness with that deck is its weakness. And not to mention the fact that
lightning weakness is wild on a Pikachu.
Right.
Is craziness to me.
Right. So, like, Lugia already struggles enough with the lightning weakness for the fact of... But it's also a 2-prizer versus you're setting up this big 3-prize Pokemon, and all it takes is a boss rope plus a lightning attacker, or even without a lightning attacker for that matter. And, like, it's cool that you're, like, not getting attacked by a... like, you can't be attacked by basics or whatever. But at the end of the day, there's so many decks that just don't rely only on basics that it doesn't really matter too much at that point. And then also the fact of a lightning attacker only has to hit for 140, or no, I'm sorry, 160 to be able to take a knockout is crazy.
Absolutely, like that's a nonsense. And yeah, like even against like other Arceus decks, playing against Arctina or Arc Drago, you need a choice belt and you're one-shotting it. Like, it's not a thing. I don't think it's very good. Yeah. If this was like before Scarlet and Violet came out, I'd say it is good because we did have a lot of big basic attackers. But now I think it's more diverse with evolutions and stage 1s that it's not even on the radar.
Right. Since we moved to such a slower format, I don't think it's so much like you're worried about your opponent only playing basic Pokemon. Like, I mean, obviously, as Lost Box is still a top tier deck, it's gonna always be like.
But Lost Box is so fast that like they're gonna kill the Pikachu before it can attack.
Right.
That's just the reality. They're gonna hit everything they need. They're gonna get Summon the Lost Zone. They're gonna power up Dragonite or Raikou, and they're just gonna like rope boss or something, or
Right.
double rope or whatever they need to do to kill that Pikachu. Like that thing is not staying on the board.
Right.
So I say C tier. I think you said you agree.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with C tier.
All right, next, your favorite deck in the whole format, Arctina.
So, I don't. Honestly, I'm so torn right now. So, like, I think Arctina is fantastic. Like, it performs really, really well. But as I play it more and more and more, there's so many ways to counter that deck. Like, you sit against Single Strike Lugia, you fold. Like, go ahead and sign the slip and like move on.
Yeah, because there's
I
no
didn't.
way you could like kill Urshifu, right? Like that guy is never going to get that.
Right. I hate, like, it's hard to say why, like, specifically, but ever since I've played this game, any damage cap decks, so, like, you know for a fact you're never going to hit more than 310 in that deck, because all you have to do is slap a choice bet on Giratina.
Right.
With decks like Single Strike Urshifu still being very popular, like, you can beat the deck, obviously. Like, you can set down Path and they just cry, but at the same time, like, I mean, I would still put it probably close to S tier. I think that deck still like just it still performs very, very well. It's very, very fast, but the big key thing is damage cap, and also with all of these RCS decks now being done, you miss your turn 1 energy, you're screwed. Like, game over. Like, you scoop up the game and say you're going first and hope you see the energy. Like, there's no coming back from it 80% of the time.
And I think you kind of hit the nail on the head. I agree with S tier. I want to put in S tier just because there are different ways you can help with that damage cap issue. I know when you went to Fresno, you played Halucha in yours, and that's another way you can kind of just like artificially increase your damage. You can just Halucha, maybe play a penny or something, Halucha again. Oh, cool. Now I can do 330 for Urshifu. Or, you know, maybe, I don't think this deck plays a Radiance, so maybe you could play like Exam or something. Just move some damage around, manipulate the board. If you're not able to one-shot something, move some damage so you can one-shot something else. It has that availability. And I think that's important.
Like, we did, so, me and my buddy, we decided to, like, change a few cards around, and it seemed to work pretty decent for him, and we decided to do a 1-1 line of Aerodactyl in there, which actually seemed to work pretty decent, because one, it also helps with the Lugia matchup. Like, worst comes to worst, you set it up, you, bring up one of your Pokemon and you say you cannot use your abilities for the rest of the game until it gets knocked out.
Right.
Which with Lugia, you're like, oh crap, my main thing of attaching energies is now gone. Then you start setting up your game, which I think that makes that deck 10 times better. But I mean, at the end of the day, it's tech. RCS decks are all about techs. Like, you can't just play 4 RCSV, 3 RCSV star, a 2-2 line, and then that's it. Like, you can. And then, like, the Babero, like, that's cool. But you still need to play some tech card, or else every person's going to know your deck and know how to beat it.
Right. And I'm just saying, like, with the damage cap argument, like, there are ways around it, obviously. Though they're kind of, like, hard to do and hard to manipulate. But I think it stays in S tier because you do have that ability in, like, how you build your deck to kind of like help with those matches.
Right.
So now that we're done with the Arceus decks, I just want to get those done because we have another brick of decks coming too. Chin Pao. This is specifically Chin Pao with Palkia, not Arceus. I think, hot take, I think this is a low B or high C tier. It just, like, doesn't, in my opinion, it doesn't do enough, I think. it's a big basic deck. It does a lot of damage, and it does have that potential uncapped damage. But like, you're so reliant on playing Arita every turn. And I think that's what I don't like about it. Specifically the Palkia of it. You're so reliant on playing Arita every turn that, like, if you don't play Arita, you feel so far behind.
Right.
Like, Arita gets you your rare Candy Excalibur. It gets you your backup Chin Pao, superior energy retrieval. It gets you Luminion for boss next turn. Energy retrieval. It just gets you so much. And you have to hit it. And if you don't hit Arita, you're just not doing anything.
Right. So, I played the deck a few times. One of the big things that I realize is, as crucial as hitting Chorus is in Lost Box, is the exact same way with how crucial it is to hit Arita in Chan Pao. Like, I would put it even almost more crucial, because obviously you have your comfies and you have other ways of putting energy or cards in the Lost Zone and Lost Box. But without, like, let's say you get turn one, so let's say you're hitting Arctina. That's such a popular deck. You're getting turn 1 Path Judge. That requires you to hit 2 cards at minimum to be able to at least attack next turn. That means you have to hit the Arita, and not to mention the fact of, if you didn't get set up turn 1, like if you didn't get a Frigibax down and a Chan Pao in the active, or for all that matter, you didn't get anything set up on the bench and you only have a Chan Pao, then you go, okay, I'm going to Path Judge, and that requires you to have so much more, and you're already set behind.
Right.
So you're so heavily reliant on Excalibur and Arita in that deck. I think, like, don't get me wrong, I think the deck's still fantastic. Like, I think it just runs really, really well. I mean, I don't think it's gonna, like, you're gonna see it and it's gonna be like, oh my god, that deck's gonna win, then it's gonna win Worlds. No, I mean, I think it can do well, because as people have seen, like, you're putting more techie cards in there. But I think the fact of water decks not being able to use Melanie anymore, or be able to use, like, a bunch of water, like, they don't have as much water support as it has in the past.
Bucket rotating really hurt a lot of these water decks, I think.
Yeah, I definitely think so.
Because, like, yeah, we can Shivery Chill, but, like, it's not the same thing, you know? Like,
right.
Sometimes you just need an item card to do it. Sometimes you need to play Capacious Bucket because you have Excalibur in the active, and you need energy to maybe retreat him. Like, you have Skater's Park, and like, you have Skater's Park. So you can just, like, play Skater's Park, Capacious Bucket, you know, Sheer Cold, and then retreat, and then, like, all your energy still in play, or, like, whatever, you know. Like, Capacious Bucket would have given you that ability to do that. Whereas Shivery Chill, Chan Pao has to be active. It's not as flexible.
Right.
I want to say
so.
tier. Like, it's still good stuff. I don't think it does enough.
I also agree. I think that whenever it works really, really well. Whenever it doesn't, there's not much room for recovery. That's a big thing.
Yeah.
And the fact that you have to wait, like, you can't just, there's no return knockouts, there's no really, like, return anything if you don't get set up. Like, you have to set up 2 Frigibax, probably turn 1, to guarantee that you're not going to automatically, like, get folded next turn.
And Manaphy, if you're playing against Lost Box. You have to get double Frigibax and Manaphy, or you're done.
Right. So I think B tier is completely valid with that decision. I think the deck's still good, but it just doesn't do enough.
On the Chin Pao discussion, I want to talk about the other Chin Pao list. Now, I just have a picture of regular Chin Pao, but I want to clarify. This one uses Arceus for its V-Star power, so it's Arc Chin Pao, I guess. It's another Arceus deck, but Chin Pao is the real star, and I think this is the better version of the deck. Because it's still reliant on you playing Arita. It's still reliant on seeing a lot of cards, and Arceus really helps you do that. It just get 2 cards. Like, get 2 cards, you can get Arita. You're seeing 6 different cards. With Arceus on that turn, and it just helps you set up. I think this is the better version of the deck. And when you play Arceus, it allows you to play more techie cards. Like, this is the version that plays like the 3 canceling or the 2 or 3 canceling colognes and the cross switchers. Like, that's this build because it just sees it's able to see more cards.
Right. I think since it's basically the quote-unquote turboed version of this deck, I think that I could see that being closer into like A tier. As much as I love Chien-Pao, it's just like if it doesn't work, it's still just like there's just so little you can do to make the deck like automatic go up to S tier.
Right.
Like, I think that Arceus being in the deck is like fantastic. You know, you don't get to use it up to its full capabilities with the fact of, you know, Trinity Nova doesn't serve any purpose, and even if it did, it wouldn't make that much of a difference. But the fact of you're still sitting there required to set up your Frigibax, required to set up your arc, you're required to set, or I mean, you don't have to set up your arc, but if it's like there, you want it. You have to set up your Chien-Pao, you have to make sure you have your Manaphy, you have to make sure you have all of these requirements, that the deck still just feels so rough if you can't get set up. Like, it's just so hard to come back for. But this is the optimal list. I would put it either high B tier, close to A tier, personally.
Okay, I can see that. I want to put it in high B tier because I just don't think it's good enough to be A. I think Arceus helps, but doesn't help enough.
Right.
So the next deck I want to look at, need your opinion on Colorless Lugia.
Oh man. So the Snorlax is really good. Don't get me wrong. But the deck just doesn't. I don't think it just does enough because it doesn't have an attacker that's like, oh my god, like you see it and you want to like run away and cry. Like you're like with. Like, you can't just throw down a card and be like, alright, yeah, I got game. Like, you're just gonna lose. Like, unlike Single Strike Lugia, where it's just like you sit against Mew or you sit against Guard, and you throw down your, what is it called? Tyranitar. Yeah, and you just are like, wow, okay, now I gotta think of how to recover. Like, it still does what a Lugia deck needs to do, which I think can put it at least, like, high B tier, A tier. But, like, it having Snorlax, it having Worldier, or whatever the heck it's called, or Blissey, yeah, or, I don't know, there's not really a whole lot of other attackers for the deck that I think make it just super, super good. So I think it's okay. I think it's, like, it's a good, I mean, it's Lugia, so Lugia's still gonna be good no matter what.
Right.
But I think it's more... It allows more for tech cards versus the other Lugia, or versus Single Strike Lugia, but I don't think it's like just good enough to make S tier. I think I put it at A tier.
So I agree. I think its biggest detriment is not just its lack of a good attacker, like rather a very strong attacker. I think its biggest detriment is it has 0 ways to kind of recycle its energy back. So, like, if you go for a Blissey play or a Weirdier play, especially the Weirdier, you have no way to get any of that energy back if the Weirdier dies. So, like, you better be using that thing if you're going for game. Or if you're taking a really greedy knockout.
So I did see a kind of cool trick that seemed to work pretty well for our buddy Tycho. He brought up the Blissey, attacked a couple times, like attacked once or twice, put a bunch of energy on it, and then he Sharon's Cared, put it back into his hand, and then let's say next turn, he could have just like it's a cool little combo thing that could work on the deck, and then you can get it like let's say maybe you're playing like the Squo Vet just for fun. Like, let's say you're playing something along those lines. It's going to put it on the bottom of your deck, or it's going to shuffle it back into your deck. You're just going to do something along those lines to help benefit and put energy back into your deck. And then you're like basically reset the game.
Okay.
I think that no matter what, since you don't have, there's no special charge, there's no anything, like how Single Strike has Earn,
Right.
you just don't have anything to recycle other than if you're like playing for a really cheap like combo that's gonna work like maybe once or twice out of your entire series of games that you're gonna play that day.
Right. Okay. I can see that. So I can see it being like low A tier.
Yeah, I agree. I would. Oh, it's not working with you. All right. There it goes. All right.
Low A tier.
Yeah.
Potentially B tier. I think that it's just lack of like a dedicated, guaranteed way to get energy back in the deck. It makes it not as viable. On the other hand, Single Strike Lugia, you're gonna hate me for this one. I think it's an S tier deck. I think this deck is good as fuck.
I think that deck, other than the fact that I hate playing against it, just because you know I'm an Arceus slut, but I think the fact of it's just so unbelievably good. Like, it folds to maybe like 2 things, and if you hit and you play so many answers to them that no matter what, as long as you're hitting one of the answers to whatever problem you're solving, you're probably gonna win the game. Like,
I think
that's
the deck just loses to itself because it has to play cards like Mesagoza and capture her.
Right. So
it's
you
like
play
the
so
only
many
thing
cards.
about it.
Right.
No, I just think Single Strike Lugia really strong. I think it's stronger than it like has any right to deserve to be. Like, I remember this deck was like a meme right before rotation happened, and then rotation happened, and everyone's like, "Oh my god, this is like what happened?"
Yeah.
And just the ability that separates it from colorless Lugia to hit weakness on stuff, I think is what just changes it up. And also because Urshifu is like going to kill something. Like, if that guy hits the board, if you do not knock it out, he's going to knock out a Pokemon. It doesn't matter what it is. Whether it's Goodra or Duraludon or what, it can knock out all of them. Because it goes through all
and it just doesn't have a bad matchup. It just has bad cards to sit against. Like, you know, Path to the Peak is rough. Like, Tinglu is just hard to play against.
Super annoying.
There's so many things that it folds to, but you play so many answers to them that it's just like, because Lugia just has so much room for like trial and error and how to find like different ways to counter whatever gets brought to the meta. They always have an answer to fix basically the situation.
Okay, I can see that. So
I think that deck's just S tier, yeah, as well.
I think it's S tier. I think. Well, I'll mess with this later. The order of the stuff. Let's talk about our next little mini block of decks here. We have Miraidon decks. I want to talk about Miraidon with Regieleki VMAX, like the old build, the one that played like maybe one Flaffy, but really relied on this VMAX and turboing your energies out with electric generators. I think this is a C tier because if you're so reliant on hitting electric generator, it is so unwieldy. It just is not. It's not cash. It's not cash. If you whiff a generator, you feel so bad because like you're attacking with Miraidon, Raichu. Like the only one that is like efficient is Raichu. The rest of them require multiple energies to do anything. I think because you're reliant on electric generator, like you have to have it and you have to hit it, it doesn't feel as good. So this particular version, I think is C tier. Well, I think it's better than the Arceus one, but I don't think it's as good as Qianpao, because at least for Qianpao, if you have a Rita, you are guaranteed going to get some things that you need off of it. have Electric Generator, I can't tell you how many times I've whiffed that card. Like, I can probably count on one hand how many times I've actually hit that card for 2 energy.
Right. So I'm gonna try and kill 2 birds with 1 stone here, and so I love Miraidon. I think that deck is super consistent on most parts, but it's just the fact of like the Electric Generator, yes, but you play so many energy, and on paper it looks super rough because like you see 4 cards, you're probably not gonna see it because like you play like Arven, that's cool. You can search out a tool card and a Electric Generator, or you can play there's a few other cards you can play with it. Like you can play your researches to help you find it. You can play your Ionos, you can play your Judge, you can play whatever, and you're gonna see them. I personally think that they are kind of B tier but personally, I think the Flaffy box or the Flaffy version of it, as much as I like Miraidon, I think that damage modifier is so unbelievably crucial just because of the fact of 220 is just not going to get you there with most things.
Right.
That you just need that damage pump instead of the energy, because it's like if you don't see the Electric Generator, it's just like, man, that sucks. Like I would put Miraidon Regieleki in low B tier, and I'd put Flaffy Miraidon C tier probably.
Well, that's just the difference though. Is like, do we want to talk about consistency of attacking versus damage output? Because like, yeah, you can do a lot of damage with Regieleki. If you don't hit your Electric Generators, you're not going to attack. Whereas with Flaffy, they also play the Electric Generator, but they also play a way to get energy onto the board. And this version of the deck does have a bigger focus on Raichu, which will do a lot of damage regardless. You have 6 energy, you're gonna knock out anything, regardless.
Right.
You're knocking out Gutra too. Like that guy can't survive a one shot.
Right. So I just think that. I don't even know how to really like break it down, but the chances of the chances of the deck not seeing the Electric Generator is pretty, like, it's pretty rough. But you play, so the thing with that deck is that you have your 4 Seal Stones, you have your Arvens, you just have so many ways to search them out. The only like downside I see to that deck is the fact of if you I think you're gonna see your Electric Generators. It's just if you hit the energy off the Electric
That's
Generators.
what I'm saying. Like,
big
I
thing.
think it's just so inconsistent because you can't hit the Electric Generator. I know you can get the card. You can get a minimum of 2 on turn 1 if you go second. You can just Arven for 4 Steel Stone Electric Generator, 4 Steel Stone for the other Electric Generator. Use them. I just don't think you're gonna hit them. Like, that's my experience. I think they're both C tier. I think the Flaffy one is better. We can agree to disagree on this. I think Flaffy's better because it's more consistent with its attacking options. But I understand why you like the Regieleki version more, because it does the damage to be able to take big one-shots in a format where not a lot of decks can take a one-shot.
Right. So I mean, I definitely do agree that it can definitely sit in C tier. I think whenever it comes to luck, the chances of hitting off the Electric Generator is pretty decently high. And the fact is that you're just seeing so many cards on, like, the deck is just so turboed that if you don't see them, there's still the chance to still recover, which is a big thing in this format. Is that because most decks, after you get rid of their one big like play, they don't have a lot of recovery, which is really, really tough on their deck, because recovery is like almost everything in this game, because everything can, like, after you always need a backup game plan.
Absolutely.
So that's how I think putting him at C tier is totally fine. I think it's kind of like leveled in between there. I think it's definitely like high C tier at that, but I think I can totally agree with like your whole perspective on it. I think both decks are good. I just personally like my preference. I just think Regieleki VMAX is just the optimal play.
Okay, I can respect that. Next we're gonna talk about these Mew variants. We have Double Turbo Mew, Fusion Mew. Double Turbo Mew is more of like the old school, like I say old school, like it's from the past format of where we're going for more of like a control, air quote control version of the deck. I think the Double Turbo build, I don't even think it's that I think it's universally accepted that the Double Turbo build is worse than the Fusion Energy build because of cards like Spiritomb and Klefki that turn off abilities and basics and feats and stuff. I think it's just widely accepted that Fusion Strike Mew is better. As far as Double Turbo Mew is, I think it's still an A tier thing. It still does stuff. It still does Mew things. You're gonna draw a lot of cards. You're gonna attack like turn 2. You're gonna do Mew stuff. It's just you're gonna have a lot harder time with those matchups against things like Spiritombs and Klefkis and Aerodactyls and like those kind of things.
Right. So I absolutely agree that Fusion Strike Mew is just optimally better because one, you can do more. So with Fusion Strike or with Double Turbo Mew, all you're basically doing is saying my game plan is that I'm going to bring out a Mew and I'm going to Fusion Strike, copy, or whatever it is. I'm going to copy Genesec's attack every single turn.
Right,
and whether you stop it or
you and judge you, I'm basically gonna play Arctina or Arcudra or Arcdur. Like I'm playing those decks.
Right.
But instead of Arceus, I'm playing Mew. That's basically what the deck is. And I'm gonna bounce my own path, and I'm gonna draw a bunch of cards, and then path you.
Versus Fusion Strike Mew, where you get so many more attackers, you get so many more options, and you just don't. It brings the win percentages of other decks down because the things that counter Mew are now finding ways to have answers. Like, with Fusion Strike Mew, you don't, obviously you use your Genesect because you want to draw so many cards, but with Fusion Strike Mew, you have other options now, so you don't take away, if you take away their draw, you always will have more options of, you can, Elisa Sparkle. You can now turn 1 knockout with a
Meloetta. Crazy. Turn 1 knockouts. I've seen some things. I've been on the rough side of them myself.
Yeah.
I think Fusion Mew is either I think it's an S tier deck still. Every set seems to have a card that counters Mew. I don't know why we are focused on countering Mew. It's still an S tier deck, I think. But hey, we need to calm down, alright? The Mew hate, it needs to stop. I think this version is S tier. I think this version is A tier.
Probably around A tier, yeah. I definitely agree with that.
It's still gonna do stuff. It's just not gonna have as easy a time at doing that stuff as Fusion.
Right.
And that's just my opinion. I mean, I could be wrong. I definitely suck at this game, so that's a thing. But
yeah. So I mean, whenever you say
I suck at this game, it's crazy.
I'm not gonna lie to you, but so the big thing is that you sit Mew against Mew, you sit DTE Mew against Fusion Strike Mew. It does so. Fusion Strike Mew has so little bad matchups, but Fusion Strike Mew, Double Turbo Mew, whenever it has a good matchup, the matchup is freaking amazing. If it has a bad matchup, you're just wow, I just kind of suck and I can't do anything. So Fusion Strike Mew is just all around a good deck against anything your opponent plays.
Right.
Versus
it's more well-rounded. But with Rebel
Right.
Turbo Mew, it just does one thing really well, and it cannot adapt from that at all.
Right.
I agree, 100%.
Right.
So let's talk about my least favorite deck in format, Gardevoir. So I have three different variants of Gardevoir. I want to start with the vanilla-ass Gardevoir. This is the Gardevoir that it just plays like the EX, it plays the Shining Arcana, it might play a Drifloon or something. It's just the vanilla baby version of Gardevoir. Good deck.
I think that deck is still a very good contender. I think it's sitting right at A tier for me. I think that deck is just still so good, but there's still so many answers to the deck. Like it's the same like basis of every single deck ever. It has its bad matchups, it has its good matchups. It just whenever you play the deck, you'll realize over time that's just like the decks that you do the same thing every single time. Every single time you're just gonna keep doing the same thing. And like the deck's just same thing with Mew. It does what like you know exactly what it's gonna do, and so I think the strategy is just very very good. I think that there's no reason to suggest that the deck is bad whenever you see it like actually work, because it has its Gardevoir, it has its Zacian, it has, like you said, against Lost Box, you got your Cresselia, you have your Manaphy, so you don't automatically die to whatever. You can also play like there's just a bunch of different cards that you play in that deck, just basic vanilla, and it just makes the deck fantastic. Now, moving on to the Mewtwo V Union, so personally, me, I love that deck. I think that deck is super, super good because Mewtwo V Union is just such a fantastic card. I think that card is personally me, I think that card is fantastic. I think that card is just like, if it just can get the right deck, it is unbelievably meta-defying.
Right.
But also at the same time, you're relying on two different strategies, which is a good thing, yet it's also a bad thing, because you require 4 pieces for that deck to actually work, and you're limiting some of your other attacking patterns and your attacking cards, and other ways that you can win the game. You're taking those things out of the deck so you can try and put one strategy in the deck that if you can't find all the pieces, you just kind of lose the game.
Right. So, I think, personally, while I do like Mewtwo V Union, I think that version of the deck is inherently worse than Vanilla Gardevoir because, like you said, you have 4 cards that you have to find to make the deck work. You also have to find a way to cram in like Peonia into that deck, or you're never gonna pull off the V Union. So you're gonna need like a Pow Pad. You have to throw in like extra copies of cards to make the V Union aspect work that you're taking away from the core like Guardy aspect of the deck. So I think, now here's my hot take. It's still good. I think it's still A tier. I think Vanilla Guardy is S tier. I think it just does Guardy stuff better and more consistently, and I think that's the name of the game. I think if your deck is consistent and it does exactly what it's supposed to do every single time, then it's an S tier deck. Like, I don't care. I don't care what it's supposed to do. It's either an S or an A tier deck. I think Vanilla Guardy is better, just because your main aspect, I'm gonna attack with Shining Arcana Gardevoir. You're going to do it. You're just gonna do it in that deck. Like, it's gonna happen. Here it is. V Union, not as consistent in my opinion.
Right.
I also think the V Union version has a higher skill gap, only because I've seen people make game-ending misplays with the V Union version of the deck because they made the wrong decision. Like, they went for like the V Union and they forgot to deck search. So they forgot, oh dang, I prized 3 pieces of my V somehow. And I just went for this play and I can't get anything off of it. And they just lose.
Right.
I think those mistakes don't happen as much in regular.
The Guardian Reversal?
So this is like a Guardy toolbox. So it's like you're not really gonna use the EX. It's just like it uses Shiny Arcana Gardevoir, it uses Buddy Catch Gallade, uses those kind of cards as like a come back from behind style deck, similar to Zoroark Toolbox, but it's not exactly the same. So it mainly just focuses on Guardian itself.
So
to quote Kevin, I'm feeling frisky, so I put it on the tier list.
So I honestly, like, kind of same description as I gave for V Union. I think the fact that they took out a good bit of cards from an already almost perfect deck, and then put in some other cards to basically quote unquote spice it up. It just doesn't do exactly what Guardy should be doing. So I think it's sitting either like A or B tier.
I think it goes there.
Yeah, I think that's a totally valid spot.
I think the thing that makes Guardy good is the EX. Right. I mean, the reversal energy helps, but I think the thing that makes Guardy really good is the EX. All right, I've been waiting for this. Lost Box decks.
Okay.
There's not a lot to say about Dragonite and Kyogre. They're S tier. I think. We're just gonna throw them up there. Everyone knows that these are 2 of the best decks in the format. Okay, Dragonite is specifically the build that doesn't play the Kyogre. The Kyogre build, it does play Dragonite, it does play Raikou, but it has that emphasis on Kyogre ending the game. Everyone knows that those are the best decks in the format. 2 of the best decks in the format.
Right.
I want to talk about Lost Goodra and Lost Tina, because I was completely taken off guard when people started playing.
Yeah, so I was around whenever our Lost Tina was like absolutely like almost best deck in the format, because it was just doing everything you ever wanted it to do. It was just 280 was so difficult to hit, and then while you were hitting 280 back, you were killing everything. Now, don't get me wrong, Giratina is a fantastic card coming from a Arctina player.
Right.
It's definitely like one of the best cards printed in this recent sets. So I think that the deck is good. I don't think it's obviously it's not as good as other Lost Box decks, but at the same time, I think the deck just does what it does, and it does it well. It does Lost Box things. You play your Sableye, you play your Choruses, you play your stupid Cramorants, you play your Comfies. You always have the answers, but you also lose access to cards like Forest Sealstone, because you want to have your chance for Giratina's V-Star attack. Yeah, and you lose...
The amount of times I've seen Star Requiem actually happen, and I hadn't seen that attack declared in half a year, and then all of a sudden it was just Star Requiem. What the hell? Who's actually using this? Apparently it's good.
Right.
I agree. I was very surprised when it came back. I don't think it's as good as Arctic. That's my opinion. It's still good. It does Lost Box things. I just think that, like you said, it doesn't do them as well as Lost Box Dragonite. I think it's an A tier.
I could agree with that completely. I think that
better than Gardevoir V.
Yeah, whatever. All right, fine.
Because if you have choice belt, you're killing the V. You gotta kill it.
Yeah.
Or you can just start.
Right. So for Lost Box Goodra, I love my boy Goodra so much. I think he is just a great card. He's been good since he got printed. I think, and then mixing it with Lost Box, that's great. My key problem is that with Goodra, you want that to be your center of attention, and the fact that you can no longer scoop up net and like put a comfy back in the hand and make your opponent only attack in a Gudra
Right.
feels terrible.
And
Like
if you
you
play
just
like Penny or something, it's very slow.
right. So they just always have answers like to go around your comfy or around your Gudra. Start killing comfy, start killing Cramorants. Like as you're working up to bring out this Gudra, you just because Arc Gudra, you're sitting there and you're like, okay, I'm gonna turn 1 attach, go ahead. Turn 2 attach. I'm going to attack Trinity Nova. I'm gonna put 3 energy on my Gudra. Now I'm requiring you to kill my Gudra, or I'm gonna get the attack off turn 3. Now with Lost Box Gudra, like you're gonna kill it. Like it's gonna take a lot longer to set up. And if it does get set up quickly, you still have to worry about finding every single card to make that card work. Versus other decks where it's just so fast and you know exactly what you need to get that deck set up, that it's just not going to work as consistently as like Art Gudra or Art Tina or Lost Tina or anything like that, because you just know that your game strategy is bringing out that card, and so does your opponent, so they try to slow you down as much as possible.
See, I don't know if I
To
agree with Lost Gudra being slow. I think you can definitely pull it off turn 2, and really, I think you can attack by throwing Iron turn 2. I think that's not far from the realm of possibility, especially with all the switching cards that Lost Box does play. It's still good though. Like it still does Lost Box things. It can still be very consistent. That's the benefit of Lost Box. Lost Box is like what Zorak was a couple years ago. When Zorak GX came out, everyone was memeing about how you could put Zorak in any deck and it was consistent. And if you can make a Lost Box deck out of something, it's probably going to be decently consistent. Like it's going to do Lost Box shit.
Right. So I think it being an A tier is totally fine, and I think that's basically about it that you can say for the deck.
Yep. Next deck is this Ursaluna V Penny control deck. This is the deck that Sander took to EUIC when Scarlet Violet came out originally. This is another Kevin suggestion. I don't know shit about stall decks. I don't know shit about control decks. I'm bad at them. I'm bad at playing against them. You know what? For all I know, this is the best deck in format because I would use it. I'd get shit on by this deck.
I played this deck. I did. It did pretty well for a little while, but for it being a stall deck, there's so many. So this was brought up whenever this Guardy first came into play. Like Guardy was just like the big talk of the town, and everybody was just like, you know what, Guardy doesn't need switching cards. Guardy doesn't need this. Guardy doesn't need that. Everybody and their mom was playing Guardy, so you were like, okay, I'm gonna play this card and tell your opponent I'm gonna stall you out, and you're never gonna be able to play the game. That was the whole point of the deck, was to not let your opponent play the game, to cycle Sableye, to play Ursaluna if you needed to basically just penny lock and not let your opponent take a knockout for the entire game, eventually getting them to lose the game. And funny thing is that Block Snorlax is the next one on there, that these two stall decks, there's not enough cards to speed up your gameplay. And there's a lot of decks that are like, alright, I'm going to let you do your strategy, and then late game, whenever you're starting to actually win the game, I'm going to play this 1 or 2 tech card that basically restarts your strategy and lets me win the game. Because they stick with one strategy, and if it can't do the strategy, you lose the game.
Right, and I think now, because people are respecting decks like this, they are playing switching cards in their decks, so they're not as... I think it's a C tier deck, if I'm gonna give you my honest opinion. I think it's a C tier deck just because like it isn't able to do what it's supposed to do as well as it could before. It's just the way that the meta has evolved and that people have started building their decks.
Yeah, I can agree with that. Honestly, playing it,
yeah, go ahead.
I honestly would put it a lot. Like the deck showed up for like a tournament and did okay, but now like there's just like I would see that deck and 99.9% of the time it gets steamrolled by anything and everything. Because once Paldea Evolve came out, it was just like the decks or the game got a lot faster. There's a lot more decks that can do a lot more things. The deck just didn't get anything from the new set, so it slowed down a lot. I don't think it could even sit at C tier. I think it'd be like the deck just isn't playable. Yeah, I think it's gonna be the first one that hits D tier.
And I
personally,
and I'm just assuming. I know you probably thought this too. Assuming that like you're playing against someone who knows what they're doing. Assuming you're playing against someone that's just not like a complete like Neanderthal and isn't gonna like discard Alder Switches like turn 1 when they see that you flip over Ursaluna or Mawile or whatever. Like if you play against someone with a brain that knows what your deck does, there is no way in this current format that you should. Unless they break.
Yeah. So that's kind of what the deck hopes for, and it basically wants you to go till time. That's the whole deck, and that's like it's a strategy. Don't get me wrong, but the deck's not gonna do its strategy most of the time fast enough because you're gonna sit against Arceus and you're gonna lose. You're gonna sit against Lugia and you're gonna lose. You're gonna sit against Mew and you're gonna lose. You're gonna sit against Guardy, you're gonna lose. You look at everything on C tier and A tier and even possibly B tier and you see their decks and you're like, wow, I'm gonna sit against them, and if I can hit my strategy and they can't do what they need to do, then I have a chance at winning. But other than that, there's no chance of hitting like strategy against strategy. It's a terrible deck.
And I want to say the same thing for Black Snorlax Stall. Like it's the same issue. It just doesn't do enough.
Yeah, there's just no cards in the format that can just like do what it needs to do or make the deck faster, or like there's just nothing there to help your like game plan basically.
All right, next deck, Spidops Leafeon. So I played this deck for a while. I like this deck. I like the idea of the deck. You just increase their retreat cost. It hurts that Galar Mine rotated as this came out. I think it has the same weakness as Ursaluna in that it relies on your opponent not playing switching cards. You're just gonna boss up something. You're gonna increase their retreat cost with Spidops. You're either gonna one-shot them with Leafeon, or you're gonna stall them out until you can one-shot them and set up your board. I think this is a C tier. It just doesn't do enough. It really doesn't.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that the deck's cool. It works. It does its thing. But at the end of the day, it just doesn't do it well. Like,
okay, we're back. Haha, I am an idiot, and Tanner reminded me I forgot Rapid Strike Box. The deck that just won NAIC. I forgot to put it on the tier list. I thought I had the pictures for it. I just forgot to import them onto the template. But it's here. I think this deck is very good. It's very versatile. It can kind of do... It does a lot of, like, spread damage, which is... I want to say it's unique, because not a lot of decks do it in the way that Inteleon does it. Like, Last Box spreads damage counters, and then, like, hits with Kyogre and Greninja. But, like, this deck, it seems like you have to work a little bit harder for it. While on top of having big HP Pokemon to soak up the hits. I think it's like, even though it just won NAIC, I think it's below A tier. Because, realistically, if you sit across from Arc Duraludon, you should lose that matchup 9 times out of 10. I mean, really, the only way that Cyrus won Game 3 is because, who was it, Ian Robb? He bricked so hard. Unbelievably hard Game 3.
I mean, if it can win NAIC, it's got to be
absolutely, for sure. Next deck I want to talk about is this Armor Rouge deck. It's Armor Rouge Toolbox, where you use his ability to move fire energies from itself to the active Pokemon. Just trying to like churn out attacks. I think when I see this deck, I think of like a fire toolbox. Okay. I don't think this deck is good. I did play a version of this deck right before Paldea Evolved came out. I played Arcanine EX with Entei V. So we didn't even have Chimpao, and I got folded so hard. Like, unbelievably. I just don't think it does enough. It doesn't have that oomph and that wow factor. In my opinion. And again, this is another like rogue style like meme deck. I think it's a C tier deck. It's just like it will work. It will do the things it's supposed to do. It just doesn't do enough. The things that it can do aren't good enough.
Right. It just can't compete with like the meta decks. It's just
right. Absolutely.
Like, I see C tier as such a rogue like area. B tier is definitely kind of like middle rogue and meta, and then A and S is meta.
Meta decks.
Yeah, so I think it being a rogue deck is cool because like it can definitely win a match. It can win a set. It can win a couple of games. It can even win like a locals, but it's just it requires so much to get going, and sometimes it just like you said, it just can't do enough to be able to get to that point of winning the game.
Absolutely. Next deck. We're gonna go through these kind of quick because I think we're gonna say very similar things about a lot of them. Winkalone. Winkalone was a deck. A lot of people were really hyped about it when Scarlet Violet came out, just because it looked like a really fun deck. It had a lot of synergy with like Sharon's Care and like Radiant Gardevoir, cards like that. You just like take a lot of hits, do 10 HP, so you could like soak up a lot of damage with like V-Guard Energy, Gardevoir, and then you could Sharon's Care, bring up another one. You just had like a loop effect. I don't really think I got anything useful out of Paldea Evolved besides like Super Rod, which is what a lot of decks needed. I think it's better than a lot of like the rogue decks. I'd say it's about on par with like Miraidon, in that like it can do its thing. It's just gonna be like reliant on if it's doing enough. I think it's about on par with like Miraidon. It feels consistent. It just doesn't do enough damage.
Right. So I think it has a couple. So I would put it in that spot too, because like you can sit against a certain deck and it can just do super well. Like it can have a few favorable matchups. So that's why like as we put things towards like higher C almost to B, it's because there's a few matchups where it just feels really good. Like you're sitting against Lost Box, and like most of the time it would take a lot for Lost Box to be able to kill it, and then you always have most of the time have the answer to be able to like pick up the game and to be able to win it. Is because you have like your Sharon's Care, you have your whatever the one is that it just heals off all your evolution Pokemon to get rid of the energy, like all that kind of stuff. So it can work and it can have some favorable matchups, but it's just if it works in its peak area, that's whenever it's most important.
Saying that, then I agree. I want to put it in low because like it can actually give some of these decks, depending on the circumstances, give them a run for their money. Like against Lost Box Dragonite, if you have V-Guard Energy, Radiant Gardevoir, and Full Face Guard, you can survive a Dragonite. That guy is not going to knock you out. and then you kind of play into the strength. They play into your strength by playing more bench Pokemon, so you're able to take big attacks on you.
Right.
And I think it goes a long way. So I'd say it's a low B tier deck, because it does have those kind of semi-favorable.
Yeah, that's true.
The deck I've been waiting for. Meowscarada. Put the shit right where it belongs. Right there. This is the biggest do-nothing deck I've ever played in my life. The amount of people that got baited into playing an NAIC deck.
It tries to do what Rapid Strike Box, but it just doesn't do what it needs to. Like, you look at the ability and you're like, oh my god, it does double gunner but better. But that also means that you have to have energy plus rare candy plus the basic evolution plus the evolution plus all these different things.
Right.
And then you don't have access to a lot of the cards that like you actually need for the deck. So yes, it's cool, but the big thing with Rapid Strike Box too was that you didn't have the hand size, but you had Octillery to get you the cards that you needed. If you needed the Inteleon, you have that to search it out. Like, you have like Ultra Ball, you have Capturing Aroma, you have a few of these things, like you have Mezagoza, you have a few of these things to search out the evolution, but it's never going to be guaranteed like it was for Rapid Strike Box.
Right. Next, Wo-Chien. I love this deck. This deck is so much fun.
Oh, God.
But it doesn't, like... It's unfortunate in how it plays. Because, like, the idea is just like those old Electrode GX decks from early Sword and Shield. Where you play them on double V. So you just, like, pop your Electrode, get your special energies, put them on double, and then, like, you just keep your opponent at bay, you reset stamp them, and you limit their resources. It plays the exact same way. You evolve your fortress, you KO it, you put all your energy on your Wo-Chiens, you Iona your opponent to 4, and you hope to God that they can't do anything about it. The difference, I think, is there's not a lot of grass supports. There's nothing really that, like, defines Wo-Chien as, like, this is it. This is the card that's gonna just beat you down. I like his attack. You do damage to benched Pokemon. It's another one of those decks that it's just gonna do one thing, and only one thing. I'm just here for the meme. I think it's a C tier, or I think it's a low B tier, high C tier deck. It's like, it'll do its thing. You can pop off Fortress consistently. Tinglu, B tier. You can suck it. It's better than Chin Pao. No, it's not though. It's better than Reversal Guardian. I like
true.
this deck. I like saying no. You don't get to have your abilities until this stupid deck, this Chin Pao deck, plays Canceling Cologne. It makes me cry. Other than that, it has a lot of good matchups, and it can, like, you can beat Lost Box with it. It's really hard, and you kind of have to hit the nuts. You have to go second, I think, to beat Lost Box, and that doesn't feel good, but you can. You can turn off all of their Pokemon, like, you have the ability to. It has really good favorable matchups against Arceus decks. Lugia is a little hard just because I believe Lugia resists, which sucks. But also, if they are able to Summoning Star, then you have to now put damage on the Archeops, but they've already used Primal Turbo, so like that's kind of hard. Guardy is, I think, the hardest matchup for Team in this format. Where they're just gonna Cresselia, and they're gonna move off all their damage, and there's literally nothing you can do. There really isn't anything you can do about it. But overall, I think it's a solid deck. It's fun.
Yeah,
Is it gonna win? Probably not, but It's a cute deck. It's fun.
Yeah. So I think it's good. It does what it does. The matchups are pretty okay. Like as Arceus decks are gonna get better, that deck's gonna get better because it just craps on Arceus like back to back to back. Like there's no way around it. I sat against that thing 3 times yesterday, and I thought of so many different strategies I could try, and nothing. Like there's just absolutely nothing you can do about that. Like you just have to hope and pray and see if you can hit a turn 1 path. But that's literally it. The deck just does its thing, and you can hope
Does it
for
well.
the answer. But yeah, it does its thing. It has so many cards that just make it work better. But yeah, that's really about it. All I can say for that. You hit basically every point about the deck. Go figure, because you play it. But yeah, it just kind of does its thing. Now, I'm gonna go ahead and take care of this one for you.
Oh, brother.
United Wings. I thought I saw Alex Szymanski play this deck, and I was like, okay, this is fantastic. This is super cool. Like the deck just looks so fun. The fact that you cannot hit more than, hold on, what is it? Let's see. Let's do the math. 240. Yeah, the fact that you can't do more than 240, choice belt 270. The fact that you cannot do more than that makes the deck absolutely awful. And the fact that he did not sit against a single Lost Box deck
That's
during that
criminal.
whole
It's
tournament
criminal.
is
Because he would have got
completely
destroyed. He went like what,
like
8-1 or something, or 8-0-1 after day 1. He didn't play a single Lost Box.
yeah. I mean, Szymanski is a phenomenal player.
He's
but,
a
like,
good player. I just don't think the deck would ever reasonably beat a halfway competent Lost Box. It should not.
Yeah, no.
Because
there's
Sableye
no
exists, and Murkrow has 60 HP. You can just kill 2 Murkrows and the game.
Right. So I don't know how much that man was paying to those judges to like rake his games or whatever, but whatever it was, I need him to like send me the link to the website to be able to pay judges so I can get like free games, because if I was to take Wings to Unite to a big tournament like that, I was sitting against Lost Box everywhere.
You're sitting against his Lost Box. That's the first deck you're playing against.
And I would go 0-1 drop right then and there.
Although the deck, it has a good matchup against Guardy, it has a good matchup against Mew, and it has a good matchup against Lugia, just for weakness. Weakness is so strong, and it's what carries the deck. Yeah, you can only hit 240, but you only need to hit 160 to kill Guardy and Mew, and you need to hit 140 to kill Lugia. Because Lugia is not playing Dunsparce. I'm gonna tell you that right now. They do not play Dunsparce.
And if they do, I'm flipping the table.
That's
like,
awesome.
I'm taking their deck away. Like, they lose privileges. Like, they're not allowed to play that.
Yeah, so I think it's a B tier deck. I think it's inherently worse than Tinglu, only because Tinglu will make this deck cry. I don't think they can beat it. They need all of their cards to one-shot you, and then you play Bravery Charm, and then you just put damage on their Dittos, and they're done. Like, there's nothing. They don't think they play switch cards, so like,
yeah,
they have to attack you with Flamingos, or Murkrows or Watch Wolves, which inherently lowers your damage because you have to get those guys out of the discard pile, and you just never knock out Dittos until you're about to.
Right, and we can test that deck on Wednesday, or not Wednesday, on Sunday or Saturday, and see how that goes. Because I can guarantee you, I can flip over my card and scoop up the board right then and there. Yeah, that one.
Let me handle this next one. Graphite Eye. It has if you don't know what this card does, you discard energies from your hand, and for each different type of energy you discard, each unique different type of energy you discard, you do 40 damage. This is going right. Nope, not there. That's too high. Right there. It's a fun deck. It's cute. It can like, you can do stuff like, you can use Mew and like search out cards. You can play energy retrievals and superiors and like all that kind of stuff. Like, you can play the game, but like, but it doesn't do enough damage. That's just the end of the story. It doesn't do enough. You have to play one of every kind of energy, and if you prize too many of them, well then you're just losing. all your damage. You only play like 2 or 3 dark energy, so if you prize all 3 of those, you're actually not playing the game. You just scoop it up right there. It's cute, it's fun. I love this card. This is my favorite Pokemon from Scarlet and Violet. They announced the EX like a month and a half ago, and I'm excited for that to be terrible too. Going right there.
Yeah, so you basically hit all the points with that, so we're just going to leave that deck as is. So now, Blissey. That's just not it's not a deck. Like, you can't, that, like, there's no way around it. There's...
I actually played someone, this is not a Scarlet and Violet deck. It was back, in Charlotte. The very first person I played against, she flipped over a Blissey. I was like, okay, I'm playing this. And it was just quad Blissey. I was like, what am I playing? Like, it's cool. But, like, it doesn't, like, do enough. And you have to set up your discard pile, and it's
like, it's a cool idea, but it's just, like...
It needs a partner.
Right, yeah,
and that partner is not, in fact, another Blissey.
Like, you're not gonna see me throw down a 4/4 Arceus deck and see if I can win with that. Like, I mean, even at that point, that deck does better than that. But yeah, no, the deck just...
I think it is better because of Bravery Charm. That definitely helps, because you couldn't cape a toughness it before, but now you can Bravery Charm it. It's like, that's
right.
Cool. But, like, not feeling it. Next deck. Sylveon VMAX Rapid Strike Toolbox. It just plays all of them, and then, like, the Sylveon, it does more damage from different type of Pokemon you have in play. I think it's pretty good because weakness is so strong. Weakness being as strong as it is, this deck, in theory, can beat anything. You play like every type of Pokemon imaginable. You just beat anything.
Right.
You have Psychic. It has, I think this deck plays Umbreon. It has a Dark type. It has Fighting. It has Water. There's a Fire. There's a Light. It has literally every type of Pokemon. It can, on paper, beat anything.
Right, but also one of the big things about this is with those weakness things, like Umbreon, it's gonna take so much to be able to attack with it. Urshifu, you need 3 energy. Sylveon, you need 3 energy unless you have that tool card. The Blaziken, yeah, like you can attack with that for 2 energy, but the deck isn't even playing that most of the time. So it's like it can do the thing, and it can do it pretty well, but it just doesn't do it as well as it used to do.
Right. That's why I think it's worse than Pokemon, but I think it's still because it can favorably match up like anything in this game.
Right.
Zoroark Toolbox. I'm very torn on this because on paper it's very good. It has an out every deck in the format. But
I personally would put that right at the end of B tier, like high B tier.
I think it's Chip Pow. I agree. It has the opportunity to beat every deck better than Sylveon can because there's a bunch of 1-prizers. The only issue I have with the deck, well, there are 2. The first of all is everything it attacks with is like a 1. That's my first issue. Secondly, energy. Energy's huge because it attacks with all special energy. Well, if you have to discard them with like research or something, you're done. Like, there's nothing you can do. And you have to set up your discard to play the deck. So, it's definitely, I think it is a high B tier deck. I think it can beat every deck in B tier. For sure. I just think, like... But, like, it doesn't... It's very skill-intensive.
Right.
You're not good at playing the deck, you are going to lose. Which
Right.
which sounds obvious, but like I can give someone that's never played Lugia before and give them Lugia, and they can probably figure out what to do in like 5 minutes. If I give someone Zoroark, conceptually it's very easy to figure out what to do, but the sequencing I think is very important, and it's not easy at all.
Right. Yeah.
Darkrai. This is Eddie's
So
favorite deck.
yeah. So I loved Turbo Darkrai like originally. I loved Darkrai EX whenever it first came out. Like that deck was so much fun. Like I saw this card come out and I was like, oh my god, they're bringing back Darkrai EX. We got Dark Patch back. We got all these cards. We got Galarian Moltres, VE, and Baby. We got all these ways to attach energy. I think that this deck is... I would put this in A tier just because it has so many favorable matchups in the current meta. But it just... It does its thing. It does its thing really well. But it's like, it has those matchups where it's just... It's a tough time, certain times. Like, the deck can potentially beat anything in A tier or S tier. I can see it, like... Lost Box, you can beat it. Like, it's hard, but you can beat it. Mew, you kind of just win. Guardy, you kind of just win. Rapid Box, it's kind of tough. Lugia, it's pretty tough. Like, there's all these matchups that are just... It's hard, but it's not impossible.
Right.
And, like, if it gets set up, it can do its thing. But, I mean, it's Turbo Dark. It's always... Like, it's the same strategy since... time has began in Pokemon. Like it's the exact same strategy.
So I think it's a high B tier deck. Let me explain. There's one card I think that makes that takes Darkrai from A to B. Path to the Peak. This deck is so weak to Path. It is unreal. If you get Paths turn 1, you're done. Like, there's nothing. Unless you have an answer right there in your hand, you're done. Because all this deck does is you turn 1, research Squawk. Well, if you can't Squawk, you lost half your draw. They want a Moltres. They want a Dire Flame Wings. Well, if Path's in play, you can't. You want a Darkrai and Star Abyss. You can't do that if Path's in play. This deck is so weak to Path. It's more weak to Path, in my opinion, than any other deck on this list.
Except for Lugia.
No, I think it's weaker to Path than Lugia is, in my opinion.
I can agree, but yeah.
Because at the bare minimum, even if you can't draw cards with Lugia, if you're pathed on Lugia, you can still attack and discard the stadium. You can't do that with Darkrai.
That's true.
If you can't bounce that stadium, you are not playing. You're not doing funny Darkrai. You can't bounce that stadium. And that's what I think keeps it from A tier. If it had a way to consistently... Like, if it had the opportunity to not lose the path, I think it would be A tier. But just the fact... And, like, yeah, you could play a counter stadium, but, like... And that you could say that for any deck that's weak to Path. I think, though, that, like, just inherently the way that the deck is built, it's so weak to Path that you have to include more stadium bumps to guarantee that Path does not stick into play. And I think from a deck building perspective, because that's a lot of the skill in this game, is it comes from deck building, that your deck is no longer as consistent as it was. That's just my opinion.
I can agree with that completely.
Alright, now for the real S tier deck. Dialga is the best deck in format! Woo! No.
Move that right on down to D tier.
What?
I'm just kidding.
Alright, so... This is a B tier deck. This is a low B tier deck, I think. It's better than that version. It's a mid D tier deck because you need so much. You have to have so many things go right for Dialga to work, and somehow, like, it just works. Like, it doesn't make sense. There's no rhyme or reason. Like, you'll just start the game and you'll have, like, adamant double energy. You're like, okay, cool. Like, let's just do it. Like, let's just hit them up. And then, like, you fill up your board, you Miraidon for your Magnemite, you do all that stuff. And, you can play the game. But, when it doesn't work, you're struggling so much, I think. And on paper, Dialga can beat every deck in the format, but it has a similar weakness that Darkrai has. Dialga is really weak to boss's orders. I have never played a deck where if you boss up Magnezone, you just lose the game. Like, there's nothing you can do. You just boss up Magnezone, and then you just, like, take a turn to set up, and then you boss Dialga and kill it, and there's nothing they can do. Like, because they've already probably Giga Magneted, like, 2 or 3 times, so all their energy's on Dialga's. Magnezone, you can't get anything on it. They probably discarded a switch card from Squawking or Researching or Zinnias or whatever, so, like, you're just done. Like, you're cooked.
Right.
It has the exact same weakness Darkrai has. It plays a bunch of fat Pokemon that have high retreat costs. It is significantly better because Super Rod is in this format. I think that's what keeps it from being a C-tier deck. I think it does better than Shin Pao. I think it loses to Ting Lu, honestly. A good Ting Lu player should beat this deck.
Right.
But I think it beats every other deck that it's behind or ahead of in B tier. It beats everything in C tier. And I think it has a decent chance to beat anything above it as well. Like, I think it goes even with everything else in B tier except for Ting Lu. I think it has an okay matchup in A tier, and it has really hard matchups in S tier.
Yeah. So the deck is, like, super cool. Like, you and I both played it a good bit.
I love this deck.
It's good. It does its thing. It's just
it is somehow consistent, and it makes no sense. Like, on paper, it does not make sense why it's consistent.
Like, you play like 21 freaking energies. Like, how do you not start with like 7 in your hand?
But you never do, and you always start with like Miraidon, Esper, like every time.
Right. So I think it's totally valid to put it halfway through B tier. I think its matchups are good. Like Lost Box kind of just it feels bad against, or it feels good against Lost Box.
Taking an extra turn is so huge. It's a criminally underrated effect. Everyone freaks out about it when like Rapid Strike Box does it, but like no one cares when Dialga. I can take an extra turn and I can kill your Pokemon. Like, that's crazy.
Right. There's just not a whole lot to say about the deck because it just kind of does this thing.
It's very linear.
Right.
Reggie's. Hot take. Reggie's trash. This deck sucks.
Yeah, no, after it lost Aurora Energy, deck is just plummeted.
It is unplayable. It has Luminous Energy, but that card is not good.
Right.
Because if you attach another special energy to that Pokemon, Luminous Energy doesn't... It only gives you colorless. So it doesn't do shit. So you have to play basic energy, and that's the problem. Like, when you play basic energies, it's different than playing Aurora Energy and Luminous Energy. Because you have to hit specific ones.
Right.
Rhizome.
So I think we just go ahead and kill 3 birds with 1 stone. So Reggie's is terrible. Like right now, the swim freely deck, go ahead and throw that card right down there. Yeah, right down there. Because that deck just, it does, like, why would you play that instead of like Lost Box? Because like single prize, it just doesn't.
Hey, you were feeling frisky, dude. You were feeling frisky. I wanted to see how I'll say.
And then last thing to add on top of there right now, put Kyurem down there. Like that, I played that deck. That deck is
I think
terrible.
it's C tier. I think it's low C tier because it can do stuff. It can play Palkia. It can get energy into play. You can play the Candace build with the 4/4 Steel Stones. If anyone's got like $60, play that deck. That deck, you'll win a game. I guarantee it.
Yeah, I just look at it on paper and it just doesn't do good. I think, like, obviously, I think putting it in C tier.
I think it's playable compared to the rest of this stuff. This stuff, like, Swim Freely, Ursaluna, blocks Armor Rouge, Regis, and Blissey, it's way better than all these decks. Like, significantly. It's better than Spidubs. It's better than Grafaiai. It does stuff. It can play the game. It does actual damage.
That's true. Alright, so there's not much to be said about that, but...
How are we feeling about Zord V-Star?
I think it was good at one point, but I think it's just fallen from grace after, like, it just feels rough. That's really about it. Yeah, I think that's fine. There's not a whole lot to say about it. It just, like...
I think Grafaiai can beat it.
Yeah.
Because it has to put damage on itself. Do that, Grafaiai is like, oh yes, I need one less energy.
Right. You know, for whenever whenever Grafaiai becomes meta deck, you know, whenever the world is upside down.
Tell me I won't play that on Saturday.
Will you lose on Saturday? Yes.
Tell me I won't play it.
Alright, so moving on to
this is
better deck.
Turbo Regidrake. This is not Arceus. It's just Turbo. It plays like Gardenia's Vigor. It plays the Dragonite from, I think it's Silver Tempest, whatever, the Hurricane attack, or whatever it's called, that searches 300. It's basically Arceus on a stage 2 one prize Pokemon. I think this deck goes right there. If you're only... If you have to rely on Gardenia's Vigor to attach your energy, you are not having a good time. This is not Welder. This is not 2019 format.
Right, and it's not even... Right. So there's just not a lot to be said about that deck. It's just, like, because we kind of already explained everything with the Arc Reggie, but it just does it so much worse because, like,
it's not consistent.
The V-Star ability isn't great. Like, and sad truth is I've used that V-Star ability a lot. It's just not very good. And especially to say, like, there's just not enough, like, attachment support. Like, you can play... So, best version of that build, I think, is with the Leafeon and being able to turn 1 attach, turn 1 Leafeon, get 2 energy on there, and the next turn just attach and go for the attack. Like, that's cool.
And pray that they don't play a Spirit Field.
Right. But, so just make sure you go first, or else
you're done. You're cooked.
Yeah.
You know what? I forgot that this deck plays Leafeon. I think it's right on.
Yeah, with the Leafeon build, I think it could be a little bit higher up.
I think it's high seat.
Yeah.
Luna Rock.
I think that's either high seat. Maybe I put it maybe like low B tier. Like,
all right.
I think I put it past.
Specify. This is not the Luna Rock that plays like the Gardevoir and all the techie cards. This is just straight up plain Jane Luna Rock.
I think that's okay to play with. I think I can put it maybe even above, like, above United Wings, because it just kind of does what United Wings does, but better.
Because it's an easier requirement. All you have to do is put energy on it. And it's more...
Right.
Well, actually, I think it's worse. Because, like, this requires a lot of bench setup, whereas United Wings requires a lot of like discard setup. But I think it's easier to discard your wings, especially with Flamigo, than it is to get like 3 Soul Rocks. I think.
Yeah, yeah, I can see that. So I guess it's kind of like back and forth, but you know, that's how it is.
Specifically because we don't have Quick Ball. I think that's what makes it. If we had Quick Ball, this would be. Well, I still never mind. It'd still be the same. Take it back.
Right. Yeah, there's just not a whole lot to say about it. So, Tinkaton.
Alright, now how low are we putting this?
I'd put it, like, towards the end of C tier.
I'm putting it right there.
Yeah,
Because
there's just not a lot to be said.
Hell will freeze over if Tinkaton can beat Spider. Hell will freeze consistently. If it consistently beats Spidops, I'll eat my hat.
There's just
no
too many hand disruption cards that you can pop off early game to just shut down your opponent, because it requires like you can set up so much and your hand will be so small, but then you'll constantly be able to keep doing like all your draws. Like you play your Gardevoirs, you play all this kind of stuff to draw all of your cards and do a ton of damage. But there's just so much disruption early game, and you require so much to be able to do it. So it's just not very good.
Yeah.
All right, so
I know like they play the Milotic, but like no. We play Ting-Lu's. Ting-Lu eats Milotic for dinner.
Right.
Alright, this deck right here, Skeledirge.
D tier.
It's way better than Tinkaton. It's infinitely better. It's infinitely better than Tinkaton, okay? Infinitely better. It does consistent damage. It doesn't take a million years to set up. They're both stage 2s, but with Tinkaton you have to have a lot of cards in your hand. Skeledirge you don't. Like, if you can get them out in relatively the same speed, the difference is this guy can attack and do a lot of damage, this guy cannot. And then you can just like Vitality Song and heal. The version I played, it played the... there's a couple different ways you can play it. The one I played, it played the Slowbro, so you could heal, or you can move all your damage, and then you could heal all of it off with like Picnic Baskets and Radiant Serenas and stuff. You could just heal him off, so he's doing as close to maximum damage as possible. So like it's more playable than Tinkaton, in my opinion.
Yeah.
This card sucks.
Yeah, I mean, it's not good, but obviously, it's still just, yeah, it's there, but...
Alright, the last deck, Rotom V-Star. Interesting fun fact, Josh, he's actually going to play Standard at some point. He sent me a Rotom V-Star list, so... it might happen. He might play on a Tuesday. I'll have to record that game and show everyone how he does not know how to play this game.
It's all good. The fact of that he's playing it. So you can just go ahead and put that. But the question is...
tier.
You're going to put that in D tier, but you're going to keep Tinkaton in C tier? No shot.
Well, I mean...
Put that right in C tier.
I'm gonna be vulnerable. Like, okay, I know what Rotom does, but like, I don't know how it wins game. You know what I mean? Like, because it's the way it attacks is you lost zone tools from your discard pile, but you have a finite amount of tools, so there's only oh so much damage you can do. Now I know the version he's playing, it plays like Cramorants. And it had, I think we teched in one Sableye, so like he can actually like play the game after he uses his Rotom. But just having the finite number of attacks, I think is a huge detriment to this deck.
Yeah.
But it's better than Tinkaton. You know what?
Yeah.
love that deck. That deck is trash. Our whole fan base is just like, I love Tinkaton. Unsubscribe.
Bro.
I'm telling you, I hate this card. This card is terrible. And I wanted it to be good because this is one of my favorite Pokemon from Scarlet and Violet, and I wanted it to have a good playable card. It is so bad.
Yeah, it's just not good.
If your damage is reliant on the number of cards in your hand, it is not a good attack. And then the other attack does like 140, and it like goes to effects or some crap. But and it costs 3 energy. Well, Muse costs 2 energy. It only does 10 damage less.
Yeah.
It's favoritism. Thank everyone for watching. Please like, comment, let me know if you like these kind of videos. I cannot wait to do the next one. Thank you again to Tanner, and we will see you on the next video.